Israel has just announced that it is canceling a planned meeting with the White House, with White House officials, after the U.S. abstained in a UN Security Council vote that calls for, this is passed now, a ceasefire in Gaza.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had threatened to pull his delegation from the U.S. if it did not veto the measure, and it did not veto the measure. That team was here to discuss in the United States the planned new offensive in southern Gaza, but it's unclear what exactly will happen now.
It comes amid reports that Israel has accepted progress on a deal that would see dozens of hostages released. If Hamas agrees to this deal, they would release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners held in Israel. No word from Hamas on their take on that, what's on the table. Our political correspondent, Caitlin Huey-Burns, is at the White House for us. She's been following this. It's a big deal, Caitlin. UN Security Council resolutions are legally binding, although people do ignore them and have in the past because there's not a lot of enforcement. But it matters at the very least symbolically and definitely politically. So what happens now that Netanyahu has canceled these meetings that were going to take place?
Yeah, these are hugely symbolic. And given the U.S.'s position, they abstained from this vote, which means that this vote went through. If they were to have issued a veto, it would not have gone through. And the U.S. Is arguing, the administration is arguing, just telling reporters just now, that the reason that they abstained from this was because it did not include language that condemned Hamas. So that was something that they disagreed with in terms of the resolution. What's significant here, though, is the Israeli defense minister was already on the ground here, slated to meet already with Secretary of State Blinken, and Defense Secretary Austin. And those are likely to continue going through. And this comes, of course, as the U.S. has issued its concerns about the planned military involvement that Israel has in Rafah, the southern part of Gaza, which is, of course, where over 1 million Palestinians are sheltering here. They have strongly voiced their concerns about this. Blinken was in the region last week, made that clear to Netanyahu, and Netanyahu said that they would go it alone, even without the U.S. backing. And so this was part of those diplomacy efforts to kind of make that case. Kamala Harris, of course, too, over the weekend weighed in. She was asked about what kinds of consequences the U.S. could implement in terms of this, and she said essentially nothing is off the table.
So, Caitlin, Tony and I were just looking at each other, wondering what is going to happen and what isn't going to happen, because there was the political meetings, and then there's also the strategic meetings where Israel was going to send a delegation to show the U.S. the plan that it had for that incursion or invasion into Rafah. So where does that stand? Does this mean that Netanyahu is pulling all of it?
Well, the Israeli defense minister had already landed. So John Kirby, the spokesperson, was telling us earlier that those conversations can still happen. But what's significant here is the U.S., the administration, is trying to argue, look, we have not made any change in policy, trying to make that clear to Israel, that the priorities here are, of course, continuing to support Israel while also raising concerns about the humanitarian crisis and doing everything they can to address that. So this, comes also, of course, as the administration is under a lot of pressure here at home from the Democrats and people within their own party, really, putting pressure on Biden in the White House. We've seen that not only through statements made in the U.S. Congress, but also, of course, on the campaign trail as well.
So just before we went on the air, Caitlin, the press office for Minister Gallant, he's the Lloyd Austin of Israel, the defense minister, said that they are going forward with meetings. They're going to meet with Jake Sullivan. So there is going to be an exchange. I think, Israel says they have to go into Rafah. The U.S. approach has been, no, you can fight Hamas by other means, quote unquote. It's important that this meeting where the U.S. lays out what these other means are happens if Israel is going to be deterred from going into Rafah. So it sounds like, from what I'm seeing as of just 10, 15 minutes ago, that meeting is going to happen. Do you hear otherwise?
No, that high-level meeting with the defense minister and the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense and, of course, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, he had already landed here, and those meetings are ongoing today and tomorrow. This was for the other delegation that was planned to also continue a lot of these kind of interagency talks.
Right. The political side of it, very important, the resolution and the fact that that meeting now no longer happening. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you very much.
Thank you.